Us today we have Bobby Selkin, who is head coach of Charles International lacrosse team. He was on the 30 by 30 film Crossroads. Welcome to the podcast, Bobby.
Hi, Gavin. How are you?
Great. And whereabouts are you today?
Here in the United States, in the state of North Carolina, here on lockdown from everything going on in the world. So been in lockdown for a few weeks. I anticipate we'll be here a few weeks more. So just trying to hang in there, stay safe.
Good. So a conversation with Dublin will always help. So just for the people that
Yep.
mightn't have seen the film, do you want to give a bit of a background into what Crossroads is and what your current project is?
Yeah, about 7 years ago, I was coaching my son in the sport of lacrosse. And I have a daughter who has some learning disabilities, and she had to go to a special school here in North Carolina. And one day I went to the school, got to see some of the kids, and what I noticed is a large portion of the kids in the school were from poverty. And I was seeing the struggles of the kids. It was really just heartbreaking. So I got to know some of the kids, and I said, you know, I'm going to try to help out. So I did what I know. I started a sports team. And, you know, it was a crazy idea at the time because lacrosse players in the United States don't come from poverty. It's a very expensive sport to start. The equipment's very expensive. So having the sport of lacrosse in impoverished communities is unheard of. But I said, I'm going to see if I can start this sports team. It probably won't go very far, but let me see if I can use the sport of lacrosse to help these kids get to college. It's not so much sports, you know, that will make them successful and make them money, but if I can use lacrosse to help them study and get to college, you know, maybe lacrosse will be so meaningful to them that I'll have that leverage over them that I can get them to do well on tests. And that became my goal, to just help these kids get to college. I soon realized that in order to make that happen, it was going to require an immense amount of time. So what started happening was I would go over to school during lunchtime, I'd practice with them, and I noticed like some of the guys, they didn't eat lunch the whole time. They didn't have money for lunch. And it really struck me. So that stuck with me. And I noticed that some of them who were in 11th grade, 12th grade, they're ready to go on to the university, and they're reading at a level of 3rd grade. So it really became an issue of, if I don't help them, who will? And it became apparent that I can make a massive impact and change the complete trajectory of their lives. So what wound up happening was I started dedicating myself to this task full time. Initially, I would just come over on my my lunch hour from work and try to help them. But then I realized that wasn't enough time. I couldn't accomplish what I needed to. So I started spending every second of the day and making it my business to help these kids. And, you know, what started as an effort with just a few kids became a massive community project that has now pumped hundreds of kids into college, and, you know, it really changed some life pathways.
Yeah, the outcome, you know, I obviously saw the film and reached out to you, and this is where we are, but the impact on the person, on the people on the team and the players and their surrounding environment, it's very noticeable. And you know, the impact that makes on, you know, the arm around the shoulder and the creating a meaning for what they're trying to do was very visible and impactful. Was that your kind of, when you decided to do this full time, was that your goal to really create that vision?
Yeah, it was. You know, having life meaning is so important. I've kind of lived by the motto that I believe Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple, said. He said, it's the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world who actually do change the world. And I've kind of lived by that motto. And I believed I was crazy enough that I could make a change in the world, not just my family. I thought I could make changes in the world. And, you know, and I approached it from the aspect of, a leader needs to be someone who has a vision and transforms that into a reality and creates the conditions to allow that to happen. So that was my initial approach. And I realized that I had to change the conditions to achieve the success that I was looking to achieve. I can't take a kid who's in 12th grade reading at a third grade level and expect that kid to go to college and have any measure of success. So what wound up happening was I said to the kids, come on home with me and I'll tutor you for the next, few hours. And all of a sudden I had multiple kids from my team coming to my house and I'd study with them all night. And over weeks, I would get them caught up. And all of a sudden they started doing their tests. And enough, they had one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. I think for them as well as for me and as well as for my family. But what it ultimately did was it created the conditions that allowed them to succeed, because I wound up getting them caught up in school. They wound up caring. They wound up realizing that someone truly cared about them. And because they realized someone cared, they didn't want to let me down. So when it came time to study for tests, they'd start doing really well. And I think that's been an important measure of the success. Ultimately, I look at leadership as not so much my successes, it's the successes of the people who are following me, and their accomplishments make me feel that I'm a good leader because we've had so many significant accomplishments.
And you mentioned around the follow word there. It must have been difficult at the start to create the belief that this was possible. Probably they hadn't been told before that they were going to be able to be successful, or this, and then obviously you see in the film that they weren't too successful at the start of the project. How was that to keep people motivated, and what kind of ways did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right that, a lot of these kids just thought no one cared about them in life. And, when I came in, I had empathy. I understood that some of them were headed down the wrong path in life. Some of them were making really bad decisions, but I understood, even though I didn't agree with some of their decisions in life. I had kids that were selling drugs, just doing the wrong thing, but I understood why a kid in poverty would make certain decisions if they didn't have a good family structure, if they didn't have people who really made them feel important in life. So I think the fact that I empathized with them led a lot of kids to kind of say, all right, this guy cares about me. I'm going to see what I can do in return for him. And that's been an important aspect of it. They do not want to let me down. And kids who are now, 4 years removed from my program and in college now, they still call me and they say, hey, coach, I'm going to be a lawyer because that's what you always wanted me to do, or I'm going to be a doctor because I want to make you proud. And it's been an important aspect of that. The other thing is I was always humble with them. And, in being humble, sometimes people think their leader has never had failures or has always been successful in everything they do. But I said, hey, no, I've done things, I've failed, and it's okay for you to fail. So what wound up, the effect of that was they would try things, try new things. Sometimes they failed, but sometimes they had major successes. And, I use that from a coaching aspect. I'd say, hey, look, we're going to try something new in this game. And the person, no, I don't know if I want to. But with those failures, we were able to look at those failures and say, all right, what do we need to do to improve? And, the same thing, they would try certain things in life, maybe try a new course in school that seemed really hard that they would never otherwise take. And sometimes it was tough and sometimes it did work out and it changed the course of their life. And they realized, hey, I want to do this for my whole career. So, I gave them the opportunity to fail. So I think that was kind of my leadership style, being empathetic, being humble, being a communicator who, laid out, hey, here's what we're trying to achieve. We want to achieve success, and again, get you down the right path here.
You just said there was the empathy word. A lot of leaders that you read and hear about, they discuss that quite heavily, and they want to be seen as empathetic, or want to believe they are. Did you have any, apart from being completely honest and open with people, did you find that the best way? Or, obviously people are, probably hard to convince and might have seen other people try and believe in them before. It was, as things grew and momentum went, that must have got more difficult as people get successful. You can nearly see that, you know, they start to believe, you know, they're better than, not they are, but they, you know, they forget what the mission is. And how did you control that?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of that word empathy, you know, I didn't just say it, I lived it. For example, I had a kid who was in one of my classes in school, and he did something. It was a minor infraction, but it was enough to have the police come to our classroom and say they had to remove him and suspend him from school. Now, I knew the police officers at the school, and I really liked them, and I had a good relationship with them. But I also had my lacrosse player in my class who did something that I knew that if the police came and I had a very difficult situation that may not have ever improved. So the police came to the classroom and they said, "Hey, we're taking him out, and he's gone from school." So I negotiated with them. I was like, "Please don't take him. It's gonna destroy his life. He needs this. He needs to be here. If he goes back to his community and he's not in school, it's gonna destroy his life." I begged them. And the police, and the other thing I realized is if they actually tried to remove him, there would be a physical fight. And I didn't want the police officer to get hurt, and I didn't want my student to get hurt because I knew it would turn out bad. So I begged them, please don't take him. And they agreed. They said, "All right, you take him home." And they said, if you leave the school with him and take him, then we won't kick him out of school. And that's what wound up happening. I wound up taking him. I left my class, and the substitute teacher came in. And I went home with him. We went to lunch, and I talked about what was going on. But that kid, who was one of the most troubled kids I've ever dealt with, he realized, all right, this coach is for real, and you know, he's really going to have my back. And what ended up happening with that kid is this kid was on one of the worst paths of any kid I've ever dealt with. He was making all the wrong decisions, and he is in college now. He's in his second year of college. And I knew that if he got suspended from school, so being empathetic, it's not something I say, "Hey guys, I understand what you're going through," because I can't possibly understand what they're really going through. I'm from, you know, I grew up in a middle class, you know, household. These kids are growing up in the most severe forms of poverty. I can't understand, but I try to step in their shoes as much as I possibly can. But when the kids realize, hey, this guy's going to really go to bat for me when the time comes. And it's not just that I'm trying to impress. I really care about these guys. You know, I know that if they wind up getting arrested, if they wind up dropping out of school, that's it. They're done. In this world, without some form of education, it is very, very difficult to succeed. These guys need to either be on a career path, or they need to be in college. And that's what I try to do with every single kid. And it also makes me realize, you know, I'm not arrogant. I'm not an egotistical person. I'm a very humble person. But I unquestionably realize that I have the power to change every one of these kids' lives. And that if I don't do it, it won't get done. There's not enough people out here helping poor kids that if I don't do it, who's going to do it? The answer is nobody. So I do see that.
And how do you manage expectations now? Because you obviously you've won a couple of state titles. You're now a lacrosse team people know and want to play, and the expectations of doing the job to now super exceeding what you meant to do. How are you managing expectations and the egos of other people? What way do you go about that?
Yeah, so I mean, just to give you a little context on that, when I first started the lacrosse team, our goal was just to maybe win a game at some point. We weren't thinking about anything else. We just thought maybe if we can win one game, we'll be really proud of ourselves. Because, for a bunch of poor kids starting in high school, in the United States, lacrosse, kids start when they're like 4 years old. So we were going to be playing teams that had experience. How could we possibly compete? But my attitude was, we're going to outwork them. When they're home, sitting on the couch, we're going to be practicing. So we practiced many, many hours a day. And then we won our first game. And then we said, all right, we're going to keep raising the bar. So as a leader, I'm always raising the bar. All right, now we won one game. Let's win a couple of games this season. And then we kept raising that bar until we said, hey, this is crazy, but let's see if we can win the state championship. And took us, maybe 3 years to do it, but we did it. And then we won 2 in a row. But then I said, okay, how do I raise the bar from that, from the state championship? Well, I'm going to try to raise the bar educationally. I'm going to try to raise the bar. I'm going to take these kids to see places, because if you have to be able to dream big. And if you've never seen anything outside of your own community, how do you dream about things? So what I started doing was I would take the lacrosse team on to tournaments in other states. And it was really exciting to them. We'd go to different universities and they'd see some of like the top universities in the country, and they'd be, wow, like I never realized this was out there. And they'd see other cities. I took them to New York City. I took them to so many different universities, the Duke University, and they became really excited. And, so as a leader, I'm always raising the bar on what we're doing. And if that's in a sports way, it might be, once you win the state championship, where else do you have to go from there? I mean, what I thought was, okay, well, we're just going to now use lacrosse as a tool to see other places in the country. And we're going to use lacrosse as a way to make ourselves successful. And in truth, lacrosse is a big part of these kids' identity, because they've never otherwise been part of something. And they're part of this team. And I see that because a lot of these kids have gone to college and kind of lost me as a leader. And a lot of them have struggled because they didn't have someone on a daily basis, really looking over them and helping them. Having said that, I talk to many of the former players from my program. So I'm often texting with them, and we still speak, and I support a lot of them because, again, as I spoke about before, you have to create the conditions for them to be successful. And I still have to create the conditions for them to be successful in college by buying them textbooks, by helping them pay rent. So it's still, there's still a lot of things I can do to try to help them succeed. And that's still a challenge.
And you mentioned something there that a lot of companies, a lot of organizations strive for and spend a lot of money on, about creating the identity and creating the, as an organization, because I'm guessing your program is very much a larger program as well, that the identity side of things, and people hug on to identities. Do you have a mantra within your program about, you look at other business or sports teams that talk around, the All Blacks rugby team talk about cleaning out the sheds, but staying humble. Is there a certain identity or mantra that you have in your program to ensure people stay humble, or people understand what the bigger goal is?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that I branded my program, and I made it clear, we are not just a sports team. We are a life success program. Like, you join this sports team, you're going to college. And that branding became well known in the community, and quite frankly, it became known around the United States that if you were part of this lacrosse team, the goal was to get you into a university. And what wound up happening was the program expanded from a sports program into a major community education program, because obviously there were just boys on my lacrosse team. It's a men's lacrosse team, but I became a teacher in school to try to help everybody, boys and girls, that, I wanted to bring the education to them. But if there's a mantra that I go by, it would be, there's opportunity in every difficulty. And I think a lot of people look at life as, well, there's difficulty in every opportunity. But I try to get kids to see, let's embrace the struggle that we're in. We got a struggle on our hands, but we're going to embrace it, and we're going to go with it, and we're going to use it to empower ourselves, and we're going to just launch, so that's kind of the way I've run the program.
You could bottle that at the moment with so many struggles going around the globe, with people trying to find a solution and step on for that. Kind of rounding up, there was one thing I saw in one of the podcasts or another video that you did around the program. You kind of mentioned it about relationships, people, and overcome obstacles. Is that where you still look at the program and really focus on, is the obviously the relationship and the person side and overcoming adversity? Is that still core to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what it's all about. It's all about personal relationships. I mean, you know, from an outsider, someone might look at my program and say, okay, this is the program that had the success on the lacrosse field. They won 2 state championships, gotten a lot of kids to college. But that's not what it's about for me. I mean, yes, I want to win the state championship. I'm competitive. I get that. But what it's about is personal relationships. It's that one-on-one of helping someone succeed. And we've had a lot of obstacles. And the truth is, the obstacles have not stopped. And, you know, one of the kids who's in the movie, the kid who had the speech impediment and difficulty speaking, you know, he lived with my family for a long time. He's, you know, I consider him like a son. And he went to college, and he was a very, very motivated kid. And he would call me every night from college, and it was just great. And then all of a sudden, we stopped speaking for about 3 or 4 months. And he started to go through some depression, and he was really struggling, and he started to drop, you know, to make moves to maybe consider dropping out. And it became one of the fights of my life to try to save this guy from dropping out. And what I realized was it was my fault that I wasn't there for him, that I got busy doing other things, and I stopped calling him, and I had to make it right. And, you know, it was really, and he has stayed in college. He's still in college at the same college, which I'm really happy about, and totally turned it around. And it just became, you know, apparent what I do is about personal connections, about personal relationships. And that's what I love about it. That's what makes me go every day. That's what makes me wake up every day and keep going, because there are times I'm like, I just want to sit down and relax. I just want to watch and not get those phone calls to put out fires. And, you know, sometimes I just want to just clear my head, but every day there's fires to put out. Every day there's problems going on. And, you know, but ultimately it's about a one-on-one relationship. It's about a personal relationship, about helping one person succeed. And I try not to lose that. And, you know, I try to see my successes through the successes of the people under me. And their failures have a very, very deep effect on me. You know, when they struggle, it's very, very, you know, painful. I really live that pain. And, you know, I can have 100 successes and one guy's struggling, and I don't think about the successes. I'm thinking about the one kid who's struggling, and it really bums me out.
It's you're an inspirational person, Bobby, I must say. How many people have gone through college now out of the program?
I'd say I've helped probably 200 to 250 kids get into college. On the lacrosse team, we keep about 18 players. But, you know, now my major motivation is really helping kids with standardized tests here in the United States, and helping them to achieve good grades on that. So I work with all kinds of kids, and I'm pretty well known throughout the community for helping kids with tests. So a lot of kids call me, and, you know, so, and you know, just look, I mean, helping any kid succeed. I mean, you know, this just, I don't know. I try to look for, you know, silver linings in everything that's going on. And what I realize is, like, there's just not enough love going around. Like we need to show more love. We need to help people more. Like, yeah, I'm struggling now too, like everybody else with, you know, being on lockdown and, you know, can't go out of the house. I mean, I'm struggling like everyone else, but I have to get down to my core is I still need to help people. I can't stop doing that. I can't be selfish about, you know, and think about myself. How am I going to survive this? You know, people still need help. And that's ultimately what we need. We need more love going around the world. We need, you know, if there's one thing that I'd say upsets me, it's that, you know, if you look at wealthy people around the world, a lot of people, they give money to charity, and that's vital, very necessary. But people need to give more time. Don't just give your money, give more time. Because if I look at everything I've done, it's not so much the money that I've given to help these kids. What they care about is the time that I put into them. They want to see my face, and that's what's made the impact. If I started this program and just donated money to it, none of these kids would be successful. What makes the difference is my time, my being there, I solving the problems? And that's what it's all about. And I think if I could say anything, it's that more of us need to do that. We need more of this help, because I can see I'm doing as much as I can myself, but I'd say that's the main thing. Give more of your time than your money.
Well, yeah, I'd say time is the most precious thing, isn't it? That's what they say.
That's true.
Before we go, last question, and you might have answered this before, I don't know. What is the one thing that you've got out of this that you, at the start, you didn't think you'd get out of? Or, you know, what's the one nugget that you'll take away and always have?
Well, I mean, I try to be a good person. I try to make a difference in the world. And when I see someone that I've been leading kind of give back themselves, that makes me feel like I've done something. And for an example, one of the kids in the movie, whose name is Mobley, comes from a very poor family, has really struggled. And one day he said, "Hey, coach, I'm really upset." I said, "What are you upset about?" He goes, I just gave $1 to this homeless guy, and then I saw this homeless guy go to a liquor store. He said, "I can't believe this guy's using my money for liquor store." And I walked away and I said, wow, like, here it is. This kid's so poor. He would do anything to have $1, but when he had $1, he gave it to someone else. So the one thing I take away from this whole experience is maybe I'm having an impact on these kids that's going to build the next generation of leaders and people who give back to society. And if I take all the hundreds of people that I've worked with and I've created that passion, and they see me leading by example, giving back to the community, and I've now created an army of people who are going to give back to the community, that's powerful.
Yeah, well, all right. Coach Bobby, thanks a mil for your time.
Thank you, Gavin.
Sorry, and I'll certainly keep following it over the next couple of years. Thanks a mil for your time.
Sounds good. Be in touch.